What will you always remember the weird kid in your school for doing? He put his feet up on his desk, sucked air into his ass, and farted back out. One time he shat himself and ran off crying. Dude was in love with Misty from Pokemon. Like, one of the bullies made him cry by insulting her and crap. This was in high school. Eating a complete salad out of a briefcase while sitting in the bleachers during one of our high school's football games. Thanked me for being kind to him in chemistry, then saying he will spare me when he shoots up the school. No, he never did, but that psycho is in the Navy now. After classes ended he would full sprint to the buses. He also wore a black trench coat every damn day. I live in a very warm place, where the temps in summer are high 80s to 90s, and in the winter it usually hovers around the 50s at the lowest, so it was strange. Using this service for the deaf/mute that would connect you instant messenger style to a representative who would then call and speak to people on the phone for you. They would say anything you typed outside of curse words, and would type the response back to you, and so on. One day this quiet kid brought in a printout of him arguing with this pharmacy about boner pills. Being 17, we all thought this was hilarious. The next day he brought in 2 other printouts. I remember one of them was with a travel service wanting to know how to get to butthole. Still funny. Quiet kid was in the middle of his 15 minutes of fame. The next day he brought in a few more printouts, but the effect was a little old. Dude kept bringing in printouts every day for like 3 months until the school year ended. Nobody cared anymore, but a few people humored him, since he was always so excited. We had this really odd girl who wouldn't talk to anybody but would instead hiss at them if they got too close to her. On one occasion, she was standing behind me in the lunch line and grabbed my butt. It wasn't like a quick grope or slap. She full blown latched on. The situation was really awkward because I didn't want her to touch me, especially my butt. But I also knew there's something not quite right with her, and I don't want to cause a scene. So I just quietly tried scooting away from her, only for her to scoot with me while still clamped onto my ass. Haha, she eventually let go, and that was that. That was the only interaction I had with her besides the occasional hissing if I passed her in the hallway. One day in language arts some random dude said something about glue, and then he got up, screamed got glue, and then hopped around the floor on his ass screaming for 4 minutes until he was forced out of the room. Mustard. This kid always ate mustard. On everything. Even just straight. I watched this absolute monster put yellow mustard on chocolate ice cream. One day a teacher confiscated his bottle of mustard he'd bring in with him. Yes, to just drink during class. And a few minutes later we noticed he had stashed some mustard packets away. I guess for emergencies like this. I remember there was a kid at my high school who swore he couldn't feel pain. He was in my English class. We were challenging him on this subject. He proceeded to stab himself in the arm repeatedly with his pencil. Blood everywhere. Kid didn't even flinch though. Getting on the table in the middle of Spanish class and start singing the USSR national anthem with his fist in the air. Guy pretended to be a dinosaur when he was 14. Some girl he had a crush on liked my friend. So being the powerful alpha male dinosaur he is, he engaged in mortal combat with my friend on the way home, which really only included him biting my friend on the shoulder, my friend beating him up, and then eventually my friend being suspended for violent conduct and Dinosaur Boy getting off with a little telling off. It didn't end there though. One time he heard someone on the Weather Channel say it's windy outside today, make sure you don't get blown away. So our protagonist, the former Dinosaur Boy, raided his dad's tool cupboard and filled his pockets with anything metal and heavy. He must have taken too long while doing this and missed his bus. So he walked 5 miles in the rain with as much metal as he could carry in his pockets and backpack. With survival instincts like these it makes sense how he could be the last living dinosaur. Thank you all for reading my story. 3rd grade. One of the fluorescent lights was going out and occasionally flickering. Everyone was doing some kind of individual, quiet work between flickers. This kid would point his arms at the light, wiggle his fingers, and contort his face into this look of extreme exertion. Then it would start flickering, and he'd relax. Never did figure out how he made it flicker. The weird kid was me. I got my first girlfriend when I was 16. And having come out of a fundamentalist Christian home, it was my first time out of the bird's nest. I serenaded her in front of the whole class multiple times for 2 weeks, until she broke up with me and ran out of the classroom. It was a valuable learning experience for me, but still manages to make me physically cringe more than a decade later. Sniffing everyone's hair and guessing their correct brand of shampoo and scent. He asked to go to the bathroom. Teacher got annoyed because he went every day for 30-minute bathroom sessions. So she said no. He just stared her straight in the eyes, maintained eye contact, and mad himself on the spot. Eating a whole wooden pencil, just bit it and chewed and swallowed like it was nothing. When playing cricket whilst sitting down queuing to bat, he'd just sit there eating grass and get mad when he had to field because it would interrupt the grass eating. He would pretend that he could parkour, but he'd only do it when no one was around. We'd constantly come out of class to find that he'd parkoured up to the roof and was sitting in a chair up there. Opened a can of Coca-Cola, put a straw in it, then inserted the straw into his right nostril and plugged the other nostril, then took a big sip. He did not flinch one bit. Humped the drain pipes and tried to kiss the teachers. I remember him making a wide variety of animal sounds. His favorite animal impression was a frog. He made the noises and he hopped around. He's an electrical engineer now. She insisted that she was part cat on any assignment that had any room for creativity, or even if they didn't. TBH. She would insert cats into it. One time in the middle of class, she threw herself on the floor and rolled around purring, absolutely refusing to get up. 11th grade. We were doing a science test. Kid wanted to play Minecraft on his laptop and the teacher told him no. She took it away. He stood up, about 5 feet 10, 170 pounds, and slapped her so hard she fell and started crying. He had done many other things, but that was the last straw for the whole district. She used to wank with a Coke bottle in math class. She also would get obsessed with a new hot, popular girl each month and stalk them relentlessly. But no one ever pressed charges, because we all knew there was something wild wrong upstairs, and she was mostly harmless. Constantly interrupted our math teacher to tell us wacky tacky tales about his wacky tacky life. Constantly. My friend did a tally toll once, and it went up to 34 in a class. Became an inside joke in the school. I went to buy a soda machine from the vending machine and the janitor had parked their big garbage carts right next to it, full to the brim with filled trash bags. The dude rose like a mummy from under all the trash and asked if I had spare change. I said no, and he slowly descended back into the trash cart. Miss that kid sometimes. She was flighty and definitely in her own world. She'd talk to us or eat lunch with us sometimes, but wouldn't really try to be friends. Spend most of her time by herself, watching videos on her phone, sometimes even ignoring us. As far as I know, nobody was outright mean to her, but it was obvious that nobody was friends with her either, and probably nobody wanted to be. It was like this throughout high school. Anyway, my high school does an overpass trip for the seniors every year. During this overpass, the entire grade has a campfire that is traditionally really emotional, candid, and vulnerable. People share some really personal stuff I will never forget, and I'm tearing up just thinking about it. This girl spoke up, said that in her old school, she'd been bullied all the time, and she loved us so much because we were so nice to her. We were her best friends. I've never cried so hard in public. That utterly broke me and still breaks me to this day. That girl deserved so much better. I pray that she's happy. Pulling a log of crap out of his ass in the public bathrooms with his hands. Wanking at a pep rally. His school spirit may have been a little too high. I asked this kid in my biology class what kind of shampoo he used on his hair. He legitimately had the most beautiful curls I've ever seen. I don't think I had ever heard him speak before, other than the hair when his name was called on the roll. He was super quiet, always by himself, and wore a long black trench coat every day. I always assumed he was super shy, and I was trying to be friendly. He looks me dead in the eye and says I'm gonna reach your soul, then goes back to reading the textbook. 12 years later, and I still think about it at least once a month. One kid jacked off right next to me when I was at lunch. I was sitting with some friends on a set of bleachers. He was just closing his eyes and lying down. He closed his eyes and started breathing. Didn't even notice his hands in his pants. A teacher ran up a few minutes later and started yelling, "Stop touching yourself." Dude got up on his desk and yelled, "I am Donkey Kong," as he threw pencils at the teacher. This was around 1st or 2nd grade, and he definitely had some sort of undiagnosed mental disorder. Jacked off and shooted to a Coke bottle, hiding it under a table during recess, because some other kid jokingly peer pressured him to do it. I don't know why. Sucking the peen of a stray dog. Full story. I was in 5th grade. There was a special kid at my school. His mother thought that it was better for him at a normal school. One day, on my way home, I saw the kid under a stray dog at the schoolyard. Male dog. The kid had seen some goats or something and thought the dog could give him some milk. Dog milk. That was one happy stray dog. I was a bit of a weird one myself in grade school, but there were a few much weirder kids in high school. One girl was pretty weird overall, but I always remember, after she got a tattoo on her arm, she would walk around holding her jacket or bag at a really unnatural angle, so she could have it be visible at all times, while trying to look like she wasn't intentionally displaying it. Another time a pair of dirty underwear fell out of the leg of her jeans and she kicked them under the bleachers of the gym and tried to say they were her brothers. Why? Another is while on the annual thespian trip, I did some of the school plays. One of the theater guys ordered his dessert at the lunch stop. He wanted the Dutch apple pie, but didn't know how to pronounce Dutch. He ordered the douche apple pie. I still get a kick out of that. He was also always drawing manga style women with huge pointy nipples sticking out of skimpy outfits. He wasn't a bad artist, but don't bring that crap to school, dude. He always picked his nose and farted. No shame. Once in class he sneezed, and there was a huge string of snot hanging from his nose, and he stood in the back of the class trying to lick it while we were all cowering. The teacher had left the room for 5 minutes and that's what happened. Weird kid from high school everyone knew, because he was the only one who had a rolling suitcase style backpack. Remembered for being arrested for allegedly attempting to commit a mass shooting on my community college campus about 30 minutes after I left that day. That was about 6 years ago. I told this story on another thread about this guy who went to my college for a couple of years with Asperger's. He really liked rocks and could talk to you about them forever. He would occasionally approach me and start talking about them, and I'd listen when I didn't need to go somewhere. Most people tried to be nice to him, but I also witnessed many times where people were unnecessarily mean to him. Like there were some people that thought of him as a weird novelty and would feign friendship and feed him alcohol just because they thought it was funny when he was wasted. I wish I would have done more to help him out and stop them, especially right before he left. One thing I will never forget was one day when I went to the gym for a run and all the treadmills were taken. So I went to the indoor track that was hardly used. About 10 minutes into my run, he comes in with his mom and goes into the middle of the track with her. He starts showing her these various sword fighting techniques that he had learned, because apparently he was really into that too. Then he notices me as I'm doing a lap and eagerly waves. I wave back and he motions me to come. So I took out my earbuds and jogged over. He introduced me to his mom as his friend. I could tell it made her really happy too that he had a friend, and he was really happy too. I had only briefly talked to him a few times, but I did my best to be as friendly as I could be. After a few minutes, I excused myself, saying that I had to get going, and I left. That was pretty much the last time I saw him, because he left school shortly after. He was a really nice guy that most people just misunderstood, and looking back I wish I had tried to get to know him better. We had a kid who pretended to be a meerkat. He would put his hands in a downward cupping position on his face and would make cheep noises. He acted scarily and would bop up and down behind desks. This went on for 6+ years and he would only give out meerkat facts when asked any question. He is now getting his master's degree in business management and did a total 180 in his meerkat ways. As kids, we didn't make fun of him, but we sure were confused. We didn't really have a weird kid. Crap. Eating erasers. Thought I was the weird kid at school. Reading most of these. I think I'm just normal. He shaved off his eyebrows because he lost a bet, but the eyebrows remained freshly shaved for an additional 6 months. Just stopped by to see if there are any stories about me. Jerking off while taking a crap with dip in his mouth in a school bathroom. Took a crap covered piece of toilet paper, infused it with fresh nut, and threw it over the stall at the kid next to him. Eating the formaldehyde preserved gonads from the arm of a starfish we were dissecting for some amount of money. Couldn't have been more than $5. The money was just an excuse. It was about the attention, I think. 9th grade biology 1988. Eating gum from under the tables and jerking off in the bathrooms and getting caught by the janitors. We had a girl in 6th grade who had over 25 stray cats that waited for her after school. No one ever acknowledged her existence, except sometimes when they need someone to laugh at or bully. She was also very pale and very skinny. I decided one day to talk to her because I felt really bad. She showed me her sketchbook where she had drawn all of her cats, gave them names and all. I also learned she was straight A student and both her parents were alcoholics and on some other drugs. This was in Russia, and it was pretty common. Makes me sad till this day to think of her, and I hope she is well. I continue to occasionally talk to her / hang out with her up until I moved away. He sat next to me in science class and drew small circles on his arm in ballpoint pen for the entire period. Then as we were waiting to leave class he says to me, "I'm really great at bird calls. Want to hear?" I'm also a quiet person, so I'm trying to be nice and agree to hear his bird calls. He does about 4 different birds, listing their name and then performing their call. And finally he says, "And this is a pterodactyl," and did the loudest Rostino scream about a foot from my face. The rest of my class decided to adopt that call for my entire time at high school, screaming it at pep rallies or during class meetings. He was an odd duck. We had one in high school that I guess was technically a pair of them, but the one stands out more than the other. Lisa the witch. She referred to herself that way. Had fuzzy black hair, wore all black, always looked unwell. She had a very large friend wheel called Debbie that was basically her attack dog. She would stalk around the school provoking people and threatening to curse them and then sick Debbie on them. Debbie was at least 6 feet tall and very nearly that wide. She'd start chasing people around the halls or lunchroom barking like a mad dog. Weird pair. From the last question like this, knew a kid who in retrospect was probably autistic, but never seemed to be in our school's extensive and reputable special needs program for whatever reason. My sister is autistic, so I know this personally. Would often interrupt class to tell jokes or even say the teacher was wrong, which they never were. He called me evil for saying combining every color of light would create white. He really liked Pokemon, Medal of Honor and Curious George. Ironically with the autism talk, I was the Sonic fan. He got angry at a friend of mine once for not having played the Curious George PS2 game. As time passed, he grew to hate and even attack me as I tried to avoid him more or told him to actually work seriously. On one of the last days of class he tried to gouge my eyes out with his fingernails. Problem is he had no upper body strength. And this is coming from me. I can't do a freaking pull-up. He got his hand in my eye, pushing as hard as he could, and I ended with mild irritation after teachers took him out of there. He tried the same thing the next week, this time with a screw in my neck. It did about as much damage. I don't know if he attacked anyone else, but they wouldn't have been hurting for long. I know a kid who had this Rocky impression. He would literally start punching himself in the face as soon as someone said, "Show us your Rocky impression." She wanked using a test tube. It broke inside her. I had a classmate. This guy was a freaking nut job. He more than once pulled his cock out full view of everyone middle class while the teacher was writing on the board and slap it on the desk couple times and sit down as fast as he could as to not be seen by the teacher. That until a girl who was sitting next to him saw him and threatened to press charges. One kid 16 years old had a boner so decided to punch it. Meanwhile someone else wanked in class. Fun times. We were dissecting fish in my science class. They were really old preserved thawed fish. He ate the eyes, Didn't show up to school for a whole week cause he got really sick. Also he would put both legs behind his head and just sit like that. This girl was so obsessed with her hamster she brought it to school in her pocket one day and would randomly take it out during class to pet it. He got caught jacking off in the middle of French class in middle school. Just had his hand in his pants I guess. I think I was the weird kid. I was always quiet. Got kicked out of a school once because of it. The word Columbine was said by the principal when I was told, "You think a kid is weird and he might shoot up the school, so kick him out. Make him a literal outcast." Great idea. Sorry, got derailed. It still bothers me 17 years later. Kid would growl and snarl at you like an animal if you made him mad, which unfortunately led to a lot of people teasing him to make him mad so that he would growl/snarl. I'll always remember Chi in 9th grade. She was a crazy horse girl, took it so far as act like a horse doing class, including eating sugar cubes and making galloping sound when she walked down the hall. It's a lot of public masturbation. There was this kid who came into school on every St. Patrick's Day wearing full Highland regalia, complete with ceremonial dagger. No one questioned it, and he did it year after year. He let his dog lick peanut butter off his peen and his twin brother walked in, drinking Red Bull all day and running the mile in 4:10. This one kid would only respond to any inquiry with garbanzo bean. Same kid would make a pillbox bunker out of leaves in his front yard and post up in it with a Nerf gun and yell at people walking by. Wiping crap on the walls in 5th grade. Bring a broadsword to school and claiming to be a Russian prince. Watching anime while sharpening his knives during class. He was wit. Getting his desk moved up to the front of the classroom because he was disturbing the class by smashing an apple into his forehead over and over again. In high school, we had a kid who dressed up as Michael Jackson every day, wore a sequin glove, suit, and hat, and danced like Michael during lunch and after school. 10/10ths for commitment. He would slowly pull out a yo-yo while sitting at his desk, do a quick throw and catch, and then put it away like nothing happened. Every day without fail. Freshman year when the band went to state competition, he was alone on the charter bus and decided to pop a 30 DVD into the player for the TVs. Someone from another school noticed. Last year the guy got sent to prison for chopping half his dad's face off with an axe in a drug-induced fit. The dad lived. Being aware of his mental and physical disabilities and manipulating teachers into not punishing him. This one time he punched my friend Frankie in the face for no reason, and she turned around and clocked the frick out him and she got punished for it. Another time my maths teacher had to pull him out of class and talk to him because he absolutely stank and it was distracting her from teaching. Stealing people's scissors in 1st grade. He did have bomb Halloween parties though, but he stole his parents' car in 10th grade and drove across the country, and then sometime after adulthood got convicted for sex crimes. Oh, and his last name was funny as hell. The two guys that would pick on Jeremy, the kid who was autistic in my class when I was a freshman in HS. You have to be weird to think you're a gangster and talk crap to a kid who won't do anything back because socially he doesn't want to interact with people. They would always talk crap to him. They sat behind him and fricked with him. It was infuriating. The biology teacher, football coach, would throw out an occasional leave him alone change seats, but he couldn't be bothered. Every now and then, when the teacher wasn't doing anything, I, a 90-pound girl at the time, would shout at them to leave him the frick alone. They didn't care. One morning I walked into class and Jeremy had a notebook with names on one side of the page and other names on the other side of the page. Scene and Jojo, the gangsters, saw this too and asked Jeremy what the list was. He told them it was a list of people who were and weren't his friends. They asked what list they were on, and he obviously told them on the not his friend list. The class was quiet so everyone could hear. When I heard him so proudly tell them they were not his friends, I laughed so hard. That's what they freaking get. They were pieces of crap. Jeremy knew it. Everyone knew it. I remember being like, yeah Jeremy, let him know. IDK what list I was on. I don't even know if Jeremy knew my name, but I was so proud of him for being so blunt and truthful with them. I didn't share any other classes with Jeremy throughout my HS career. I only hope people weren't peens to him anymore. People in my school always talked about the weird kid, but I couldn't find him. In the middle of class, he threw his pen straight to the blackboard and said that pen is evil. Everyone was stunned for a bit, then pretended that nothing happened. There was this hallway back in high school that housed some real weirdos. The kids that sat in each other's laps, wore tails and ears, barked at each other and all that, hung out there a lot. I had a class in that hallway right after lunch. As I walked by, this girl is on all fours with the ears and tail get up. She growls at me, and I swear to God nipped at my heels like she's feral. Ate a wasp. He bragged about being able to bring a cat skull to school. We were in kindergarten. Singing cocaine at a school karaoke event. I can't hear that song today without thinking of that guy in his black duster. The infamous squirrel incident will never be forgotten. While on the playground, he peeled the skin off a dead squirrel and stuffed it in his pocket. My 3rd grade teacher lost her crap when she figured it out. Same kid used to run away from school. Occasionally we'd see him hauling ass across the lawn from the window. We had a D kid, disabled instruction / special needs, named Timmy. Someone on the football team showed Timmy 30 and that got Timmy into a butt fricking craze. Timmy then convinced a D girl to follow him into the portable's restroom where he fricked her in the ass and she pooped, but he continued railing away like some retard stallion. Hence the name Timmy Twahole. Legend. Taking a crap on the floor in class. Had a kid break his ankle by running away from a teacher with his pants around his ankles. He was jacking it outside during class change. This one kid in my high who was always kinda weird, kinda quiet, just went completely nuts in class one day. His first morning class had a sub and apparently he was talking really aggressively towards her, then like halfway through class he just got up and grabbed his chair, swing it up over his head, and charged the sub with it. Just went bananas, and it took like 4 of the biggest guys in the class to hold him down before he calmed down. Not really sure what the deal was, because I saw him still walking through the hallways after that. I always regret reading these threads. Nothing like remembering all the weird crap I did because my schizophrenic mother didn't teach me better. Daring himself to eat cat crap, then proceeding to eat cat crap and projectile vomiting everywhere. Performing entire wrestling matches against his backpack for the entertainment of everybody in the cafeteria. People's elbows, DDTs. He had it all. Then he graduated and killed a guy. She pooped in a public shower during one of our school camping trips. I used to yell at the top of my lungs, "Does anybody want to trade Yu-Gi-Oh cards?" I was the weird kid. The kid stole a schizophrenic girl's phone and hid it in the bathroom. The whole class had to have their bags checked. Knocking out pieces of his own top 2 front teeth. Supposedly he bent over to tie his shoe in the bathroom and hit his mouth on the sink. Also he talked about stalking me and would shape his hands like they were binoculars and hold them up to his eyes whenever he saw me. Roses are red, violets are blue, Vincent told me. His boner went POOM. We didn't have too many weird kids. Had a kid in high school with a bowl cut mullet that went below his shoulders. A girl who had a fuzzy handcuff collection and gave out condoms on Valentine's Day. And one girl who walked across the stage at graduation in bare feet. Not anything super weird or crazy. This is pretty tame by comparison. But one kid in my 1st grade class was obsessed with rubbing things on his groin. He usually did it to keep other people from touching his food or things he wanted, or so he could then hit people with an out-tainted, haha, item and make them run away. I still remember the one day he had Cheetos in his lunch. He was wearing these peachy pink sweet pants and ended up with a weird orange stain across the crotch. The kid was seriously tireless in his quest to touch everything in the classroom.